happen at this hour. The 5 o'clock advisory is now in up to 180 miles per hour. Now, there is a Hurricane Hunter aircraft on the way to make sure, but it was 175 when they last left, and the storm hasn't lost any intensity. And in fact, it's forecast, Jake, to get to 185 after midnight tonight, and then make landfall either as a Category 4 or a Category 3 very close to Tampa. When Helene hit the area, I know it went north of there, but the surge in Tampa Bay was 6 to 7 feet. The forecast surge in Tampa itself is now 10 to 15 feet. So I talked to a guy today who said, hey man, I had 6 feet of water in my house. And I went, ugh, that's not good, because 6 is now going to be 10 or 15. So that house may not be there anymore. Dude, this is really, really a deadly storm that people are going to need to get away. If your local county emergency manager says you need to evacuate, now is the time. Unlike the storm that Ian that kind of turned into Fort Myers, we have time this time. You have time to find some place to shelter. And it is going to be one, obviously for the record books, but we've never had a stronger storm, obviously in the Gulf of Mexico in the past couple of decades. The last storm that made landfall close to Tampa was 102 years ago. The last major hurricane didn't have a name, but that was 1921. This is a devastating event. People need to take precautions. You need to tell your relatives, hey, Uncle Joe, you need to get out of there. They told you to leave. It's time. You have to go somewhere. You don't have to go to North Carolina. You have to go somewhere away from that surge, away from that water, Jake. All right.
Radar in there, which gives an MRI picture of the storm. We send that off on real time, and that's used in models to help with that intensity and track forecast. We do the World War II nose arc for that aircraft, and that later went to Gonzo, which is our meteorologist and some of the best professionals on the plane. So I would say, like myself, I flew for agency. They say, hey, it's going to be this bad, and it's going to be this bad for this amount of time, right? And I was going to leave the Navy and go work for American Airlines.
Here you can see these are all the different data streams. So you can see the lower fuselage radar, that's the radar, the big black radar underneath our belly. Tail radar 1 and 2, so you can see different, so all very, very customizable, a lot of really interesting information coming on the airplane.
Cool. Okay.
On the bottom of the sensor right here, you have the ability to send back information to the airplane, such as temperature, pressure, humidity, dew point, and GPS drive wind speed. There's a parachute that comes out the top right here, and it gets launched out of this tube on the aircraft by the person we call our AVAPS operator, Airborne Vertical Atmospheric Profiling System operator. We use anywhere between 30 to 40 of these in a storm at a time. We are up at 8 to 10, sometimes up to 12,000 feet. This goes from the airplane all the way down through the different layers of the environment to the surface, where everybody wants to know what's going on at the surface. They don't care what the weather's like at 8 to 10,000 feet. This is one of those tools that will allow us to do that.
So when you fly, do you...
Go to the eye, turn around, come right back, the exact way you have eye scratch.
I'm not sure if that's like
Yeah, they really collect some of the most important direct measurements of data we get about hurricanes. They can fly right into the storm, tell us where the storm's located, how strong the winds are, how big the storm is, and that data is used by our forecasters at the Hurricane Center as sort of the foundation for their entire forecast process. Satellites have come a long way, and they provide a tremendous amount of data that's really of value to us at the Hurricane Center. They're sort of our day-to-day situational awareness tool. They help us identify areas that might be forming into a tropical depression or tropical storm, and we can estimate the intensity of a storm from satellite imagery for multiple different types of satellites, and the estimates are pretty good, but the uncertainty is still a lot larger than when you're able to fly an aircraft in there and directly measure. Sometimes when we
Every storm kind of has their own personalities, right? And you never really know what the storm's going to be like until you get out there. The best analogy that we like to use is like riding an old wooden roller coaster through a car wash. It's kind of that rickety, bouncy feeling, and then when you're on a roller coaster, you kind of hit the top and your stomach kind of comes up a little bit, and then you hit the bottom, and then you kind of sink into your seat. It's a lot of that. It just happens to be for sometimes 8 hours at a time. So, but usually you're trying to get away from it in a commercial airliner. You know, we choose to go right through it, and we have to because that's where the science needs us to be. So, you know, that's part of the job. It's one of the hazards that we accept. We're a very safety conscious organization. We've been doing this safely for a very long time, and so the way that we fly into the storm is very intentional and well thought out and well discussed, and we spend a lot of time like mitigating the hazards that are associated with flying into a hurricane. No, we're the bus drivers, right? We're the scientific bus drivers, so we respond to the needs of the scientific community. You saw when the NOAA the forecast that just came out, they're expecting an above normal hurricane season, and that's due to a lot of factors, one of which is higher than normal sea surface temperatures. And so we have definitely seen an uptick in the amount of storms that go through what we call rapid intensification. Those like Cat 1s that go really, really quickly to a Cat 3, 4, 5, and then spin back down, and that's been something that we've definitely been experiencing more recently in the recent history.
So I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, which is it's the panhandle of Florida. It's lower Alabama, but it's really in a prime location for hurricanes. So growing up, so my family lost their home to hurricanes twice growing up. One was an earlier storm, and then the other one was one I actually flew in. So you know, it's pretty nuts that you're flying into a storm. You know, like you can see, hey, they're being affected by this, right? And then you land, and then your mom's like, hey, our house got destroyed in this storm, right? You know, pretty incredible, right? Us checking these data creates about 10 to 20% increase in flight track and intensity forecast, right? So that doesn't seem like a big amount, but that's really the difference of evacuating or not evacuating Houston, right? Houston has 4 million people-ish, and you think about $1,200 to $1,500 in cost per family to evacuate. I mean, this plane is saving billions of dollars every storm that